Rejoice. We watched college football tonight. You saw it. I saw it. We got to watch real college football tonight. And we actually had a really good game in West Lafayette with Purdue and Northwestern, a conference game in the Big Ten for the first time ever being played on week one, and not just a conference game at night involving division opponents. So we actually had that for the second time, as memory serves me, going back 1 year to Ohio State, Indiana, which set the trend for this new approach by the Big Ten in scheduling a conference game right out of the gate and on a Thursday night and placed on national television on ESPN. So actually, Ohio State, Indiana, the first time ever in 2017 in which a Big Ten game was played. Conference game, opening night, week one, Thursday night, national television, and now the Big Ten follows suit on ESPN with Purdue taking on Northwestern. It was a really good football game. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, breaking down the game we love with instant analysis, our first edition of the season. If you have just joined us during the offseason and have yet to experience Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, during college football season, this is when it really amps up and ramps up in terms of our coverage, in terms of our excitement. This is it. This is what we wait for, is college football on the field. And at least that game did not disappoint. And of course, we are just warming up for the weekend. Tomorrow night will be San Diego State in Stanford playing in Palo Alto as the marquee game of the night. And then, of course, we really take hold with the big boys playing on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. All right. I invite you to like, comment, and subscribe here at Mark Rogers TV. If you love college football, if you don't, then I'm sure you've got something better to do at midnight on a Thursday night. But like, comment, and subscribe. We talk to the best bloggers, broadcasters, and writers in the nation. You get analysis from myself. And of course, I invite you and engage the live chat on a regular basis as well. So we hear from you as well. Before we get to some college football analysis here, would like to remind you that we've got a newsletter that is starting this Monday, September 3rd, which is going to be my recap, my take on the weekend's play. Also, stats, trends, analysis, facts that you will not find anywhere else. Also, a channel update from us, and also some interesting nuggets that we will work in, and always taking your suggestions on how we can do it better. That starts on Monday. To join the fun, all you need to do is send me your email address. Send that to MarkRogersTV at Gmail. MarkRogersTV at Gmail. Your email address and your name, if it's not obvious. I would like to have your name, and I don't have to have it to send you the weekly newsletter. But if I do, that's a plus. I like that. And we will go from there. All right, here we go. Let's strike up the live chat. And we will see what you guys have. What caught your eye? I will let you know what I've been doing for the past 5 hours. Most of you guys know I've been watching college football, even though I get accused at times of not watching particular teams play based on my previews and predictions. My prediction's rather good tonight. If you checked out the preview video, the prediction video of week one, I'm off to a good start. You know the prediction game, though. As soon as you get full of yourself, you know what can happen. So I will only state as a fact that I selected Northwestern to win the game outright, and I took the +2, and also took Central Florida to cover 24. So I'm 2 for 2 and 2 for 2 against the spread. The last I saw was that we had Wake Forest and Tulane in overtime down in New Orleans. I will check in on that as well. So my highlight here is going to be Northwestern and Purdue, but of course we had other games of some level of importance. It's college football, it's Power 5, it's Group of 5. And for the first hour tonight of my viewing from 7 to 8 o'clock, I checked in on Mackenzie Milton and Central Florida taking on UConn at Rentschler Field in beautiful East Hartford, Connecticut. And that wasn't much of a game after a few drives. That was my 7 to 8 o'clock viewing Eastern time. And then I flipped to Northwestern-Purdue and locked in on that. All right. What do we got? From the top, Air Max, the legend killer, first time Mark Rogers. Air Max, welcome to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Orson Asorka, aloha. Amazing Blue, first time I've seen you. Welcome to Mark Rogers TV. Colton, of course, got to feel bad for Purdue. Well, I've got to feel bad for not getting to see a legitimate outcome to the end of the game. I hate when the officials have to take it in hand. I really hate it when they circumvent the action on the field and take it into account, but they didn't have a choice in this particular situation. We'll get to that in just a second. Ricky, hey, Mark, good game tonight between Northwestern and Purdue. Can't wait for Saturday to be back with Iowa at Northern Illinois. A tricky, sneaky, tricky game for the Hawkeyes at home. Purdue did blow it. Uncle Lou, definitely. So I did my Purdue preview just a few days ago, and of course I highlighted that with all their losses on defense, a really good defense last year, a defense that was basically the reason in which they went from 3 wins to 7 and won a bowl game. You would think it would have been offense under Jeff Brom because he's a passing guru, but the offense basically just prevented mistakes that they made in 2016. The defense was the difference between Purdue 2016 and 2017. And they lost most of those guys. Check out the video. But Lorenzo Neal was the only returning lineman. And he was the guy on the play that they needed on 3rd and long just to wrap up the ball carrier. They already had him wrapped up, blows the whistle, and had to throw the guy to the ground. And should have known better. And the officials had to blow the whistle, throw the flag. And they did. There was the game over. I wanted to see Northwestern have to stop Purdue, whether they would have made the field goal to make it 34-27. It would have been a difficult kick, or Northwestern with the ball in its hands, or Purdue with the ball in its hands, needing the final drive to go all the way and win the game. But we were robbed a chance of seeing the opening night drama at the end of the game. Leon on board. So Colton, for some reason, was flipping between Northwestern Purdue and the Utah game. Well, Weber State jumped out. They were up 10-7. Then Utah, as expected, blew them out. So welcome to college football. Rondell Moore. Did you see this kid coming? He's a kid that we did highlight in our preview as a 4-star, and statistically the highest ranked Purdue signee ever from Jeff Brom's high school there at Trinity High in Louisville. And the first series of the game, they threw him one over the middle, and he was a little hesitant, felt the safety right behind him, dropped the football. Then after that, he made no mistakes, and he showed us that he is a game-changing kind of kid. He had a 75, 80-yard touchdown and a jet sweep. He made some ridiculous runs in open space, made some kids look silly on the Northwestern defense. Remember that name. It might be a cause for watching Purdue football later in the season if Purdue's out of it, as they very well may be against the schedule that they have to play. I've got him projected at 5-7 and Northwestern at 6-6. But Rondell Moore, did you see this kid play? I don't have the numbers in front of me, but there were 12 minutes left in the game when it was announced by the ESPN broadcasting duo, a very good duo, by the way, of Dave Fleming and Kirk Herbstreit, which is a bit of a change-up that we also experienced last year before Herbie jumps into the Saturday night feel that he gives it the Thursday night leading into the opening weekend, in which he works the Saturday game and the Monday night game. But Dave Fleming and Herbie talked about Rondell Moore breaking the Purdue all-time record for total yardage because he was returning punts. He caught passes. He had the long touchdown run. Technically, it was a run on that play. And that wasn't a freshman record. That was the all-time Purdue total yardage record. At that point, it was 313 yards. I don't know what he finished with. I will not check the box score right now. All right. Let's jump to it. Okay, so my notes on Northwestern-Purdue. This is my thought here. Again, right out of the gate, I was keeping my eye on number 4, I believe is his number, Rondell Moore, the 4-star athlete who had the big drop. And then after that, he was flawless. There was a bad play by the Purdue quarterback, and then it turned to be bad play after bad play after bad play. He just made stupid decisions. And the first one was that he was getting blasted by 2 defenders in the backfield and just whipped it up for grabs with his team driving. Purdue was driving, looking good on offense. They had driven to about the Northwestern 35, and the Purdue quarterback just decided, Elisha Sindelar, who just won the job, and those 2 quarterbacks between Sindelar and David Blau battled back and forth, and basically whoever was healthy was playing, and that was the situation last year. And it looks as though, unless Blau plays out of his mind, that's going to be a back and forth that we're going to have to watch, and that Jeff Brom is going to decide throughout this season between Blau and Sindelar. But in the first half, Sindelar put his team in a hole with bad decisions. And the first one was on the first drive, just letting that thing go with 2 defenders in his ribs, and it was picked off by Trey Williams. So that was the first of many mistakes by Elisha Sindelar. Just a dumb decision. And it was actually J.R. Pace that picked off that pass, brought it back. All right. Justin Jackson, one of the great running backs in Big Ten history statistically. Now, I'm not going to rate him. It's kind of similar to the situation with Ralph Webb at Vanderbilt. Ralph Webb finished as the 6th all-time leading rusher in the SEC. He's not the 6th best back in the SEC all-time. He's not one of the 20 best backs, but he finished that high statistically. Same thing here with Justin Jackson. Give him all the credit for being a workhorse, for being a good back, for piling up yardage, but Justin Jackson was not a great back, but a very capable back. Only the 9th player in history to gain 1,000 yards in all 4 of his varsity seasons at the collegiate level. But Jeremy Larkin is a different kind of back and a better back. The stats proved out more effective, efficient, more consistent, and more explosive more than anything than Justin Jackson. And we got to see it tonight. He was just one of 3 backs in FBS play as a freshman to gain more than 6 yards per carry and 500 yards. So that was Jeremy Larkin, and he took the Northwestern offense on his back in the second half when they could do nothing. They punted 5 consecutive series, but when they needed something, they didn't score points. They had 31 at half, but they needed something to move the chains, to keep the Purdue offense off the field, and they got the ball to Jeremy Larkin. All right, TJ Green had to play some football tonight because of Clayton Thorson coming off the ACL injury in the bowl game against Kentucky. So Clayton Thorson, the longtime quarterback for Northwestern, has been the starter since his freshman season, could not play the entire game, but they put him in there in the critical times and wanted to play him the entire game because Northwestern's offense was certainly working better with Clayton Thorson in the game, as you would expect. Interesting note about TJ Green for you NFL fans. His father, Trent Green, watching the game, 16 years in the NFL. Most notably with the Kansas City Chiefs, where he led that offense, the Dick Vermeil offense, with Priest Holmes at running back and Dante Hall and all those guys for Kansas City. They had a really explosive offense, but probably best known Trent Green for blowing out his knee in preseason and ushering in the Kurt Warner era. Anyway, Trent Green was on the in the stands watching his son, TJ Green, play, who scored his first collegiate touchdown as a junior. He's a walk-on for Northwestern, and buying time for Clayton Thorson, who could not play the entire game, or it was actually a precaution that Thorson could not play the entire game. Northwestern's got a kicker in this kid, Kubander, who hit on 13 of 16 as a freshman. And Purdue was a little heavy on the pass game. 20 out of its first 25 plays were dropbacks. Northwestern played some really good defense in the first half. We saw they were opportunistic because Sindelar made some bad throws and bad decisions. One of those was the Nate Hall interception, in which he duped Sindelar. So he was playing right defensive end. He dropped back into coverage and made a remarkable interception with a fastball coming right at him. He was able to dive and pick the pass off. So Sindelar with a number of bad interceptions. So Jeff Braun made the move toward the other quarterback, David Blau, in the second half, who played okay, played well. He played decently. At least he didn't turn the ball over, put 10 points on the board, but it wasn't enough as they lose their first game of the season, 31-24. And, of course, Lorenzo Neal with the play of the game, unfortunately, in throwing down the ball carrier on a 3rd and long that would have forced Northwestern to punt back to Purdue with 90 seconds to play, and would have given the offense plenty, or set up the field goal opportunity that would have either made it 34-27 with a touchdown to tie, or 31-27 with the ball in the hands of David Blau to try to come back and win the game. But that's the way it goes. You got to be disciplined when the game's on the line. And so there you go for Northwestern, a much-needed win, because they've got a rough schedule with the likes of, I believe, Michigan State, Penn State, Wisconsin, of course, Nebraska, and Notre Dame in the non-conference schedule. All right, we also had a game, again, with Central Florida taking on UConn. That wasn't much of a game. UConn was one of the worst offenses in college football last year, and they were pretty bad tonight with only 17 points and really 10 points when it mattered. The other touchdown was a garbage touchdown. Central Florida scored on the opening kickoff. The play that really stood out to me and showed the worth of Mackenzie Milton was the play in which he was rushed flush from the pocket, and he was on the dead sprint practically, and he threw it to the back corner of the end zone for the Ole Miss transfer Trey Nixon to make a play on. And that was a remarkable throw by the guy they call the Hawaiian Knight, Mackenzie Milton, a guy that we talked to at American Conference Media Days about his possible Heisman candidacy. Of course, that's a long shot considering his schedule and Central Florida's place in college football. But just a perfect throw on the run by Milton, who at the point that I saw his stats was just throwing up some serious numbers on the Husky defense, as Central Florida won at 56-17. Central Florida also with a new defensive coordinator, a guy that we're familiar with in Randy Shannon, coached at Miami, head coach there, heading up the Knights on defense. David Pindell, the new UConn quarterback, has some issues throwing the football downfield. He's basically a runner, and it's going to be a challenge for UConn to generate much offense through the air. All right. Jamie jumping on the line. I think Arizona State will be real good, and USC is USC. Impressed with Purdue's fan turnout tonight from what I saw on TV. Minnesota's fan turnout. Ha ha. Well, of course, Purdue was playing a night game on ESPN against Northwestern, a Big Ten division foe, and Minnesota was playing New Mexico State. We'll talk about that game just a little bit as well. It was just a few days ago that Zach Annexstad became, based on all research that myself or anyone else can uncover, and the Minnesota Sports Information Department seems to be awfully proud of the fact that Minnesota is starting a true freshman walk-on quarterback in the first game of his career, in the first game of the season, for just the second time in the history of Power 5 football. The other time a guy by the name of Baker Mayfield in 2013 for Texas Tech, not Oklahoma. Texas Tech, Baker Mayfield as a walk-on in Lubbock started the first game of the season as a true freshman. And so Zach Annexstad for Minnesota tonight did the honors against New Mexico State in a 48-10 rout. New Mexico State is so bad that they only have run for 29 yards against 607 yards for the opponents in their first two games. They lost to Wyoming by 3 touchdowns, and now they got drubbed by Minnesota in game 2. So a win against New Mexico State, not telling us much about Minnesota. The Gophers will take on Fresno State, a team that made it all the way to the Mountain West Championship game last year and winning 10 games, and they beat Houston in the Hawaii Bowl. So that will be a much better test to see if PJ Fleck's team, and especially the offense and the passing offense, has made any kind of move in the offseason and is upgraded at all after having one of the dismal offensive performances in college football last year. Minnesota had one of the 10 to 15 worst offenses in the nation last season. But they beat New Mexico State 48-10. But next up for the Gophers at home against Fresno State, Rodney Smith, who has been Minnesota's best rusher, one of those guys that seems to have been on campus forever, one of those guys that just seems like he's got a 7-year eligibility deal, gained almost 160 yards tonight for Minnesota, but he no longer has Shannon Brooks as his running mate in the backfield. All right, so I'm going to run down the scores and the highlights of these games, as I already have, of course, with Northwestern and Purdue, and you guys chime in with what hit you tonight. And again, I'm interested to see the final outcome of the Wake Forest-Tulane game, because the last I saw, they were tied in overtime at 17. So don't give it away on me here. I would hope that Wake Forest was able to beat Tulane. I was a bit surprised that even though they didn't have their starting quarterback in Kendall Hinton, and the game is on the road, that Wake Forest, a decent team out of the ACC, a team that's won bowl games the last 2 years, was only a 2 or 3 point favorite in New Orleans against Tulane. But Vegas, once again, knew what it was doing in making Wake Forest just a 2 or 3 point favorite, because in regulation, it was a tie game. So let's run them down here. Wake beats Tulane 23-17 in overtime with a touchdown that they did not have to kick the extra point, I believe. And so let's see what happened here. So again, the story for Wake Forest this season is they lost their quarterback, John Wolford. He moves on to the NFL. He's in somebody's camp right now. I don't remember where, but he was a 30 touchdown passer, led the ACC in touchdown passes last year, and only threw 6 picks. And Wake Forest passing attack out of nowhere became one of the best in college football, scored 55 points in their bowl game against Texas A&M, and finished 8-5. Well, John Wolford's gone. Kendall Hinton is a guy that has been battling John Wolford for the job for 3 seasons, and at times looked like the better quarterback, certainly the more dynamic runner. Wolford the passer, Hinton the runner. Kendall Hinton finally gets the job. Now, he did play substantially in 17 different games over the past 3 years, but he finally had the job to himself. And what did he do? I don't know exactly what it was. It was some type of team violation, but he did something stupid to get himself suspended for 3 games. I know we reported on that. We talked about it, but I don't remember the exact infraction or violation of team rules. If it had anything to do with the law in particular, it may have. But Kendall Hinton, with the job in his hands, gives it away for 3 games due to a suspension, and puts his team in a bad spot in going on the road against pesky Tulane team that came within 1 play of going to a bowl game last year. And Wake Forest almost lost this game because they had to play a quarterback who had never played one meaningful snap in college football. So let's see how he did. Sam Hartman. And I know that they played extra snaps in overtime, but Wake Forest definitely did not rely on its running game, but they gave the keys to the kid, Sam Hartman, who had never played college football. 31 for 51 for 378 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. They've got a running back in Matt Coburn, who we've seen play for a number of years as well. He's played since he was a freshman. This is his senior season. I expected him to be the main back, and he only carried 13 times for 48 yards. They gave the ball to Cade Carney, who's also been in the Wake Forest system for quite some time, 16 carries for 54 yards. So, of course, the important thing here is that Wake Forest survives a group of 5 game on the road and wins 23-17 in overtime. Their top wide receiver, maybe the best in the ACC, is Greg Dortch, and he had a big night on opening night, 12 catches for $149. Sage Surratt, 11 for 150. So they threw it all over the place. They did have 43 rushes, 51 passes. So a lot of snaps out of Wake Forest, while Tulane threw it 38 times and ran it 41. Jonathan Banks, 18 of 37 for 281 through the air, no interceptions, 2 touchdown passes. Taryn Enclade, a player that we talked to at American Conference Media Days, had a 38-yard touchdown. He also caught 8 passes for $189 and 2 touchdowns. So Tulane gave Wake Forest a fight at home in New Orleans, but Wake Forest wins 23-17. So they've made it through the 1 game on the road of the 3-game suspension for Kendall Hinton. And Hinton will serve the 3 games, and then the first game back, he will take on Notre Dame at home. So Wake Forest survives 23-17. Google Play, Podbean, iTunes, and Stitcher if you prefer the audio. But of course, you guys are watching the video. But I'd like to remind you of that. If you're running errands, got some chores, some housework, and you want to hear the audio instead, Google Play, Podbean, iTunes, and Stitcher. Just search Mark Rogers TV. Let's get to our next game. I know that the SEC had a couple in play here. Texas A&M wins over Northwestern State 59-7 as expected. Want to look at these numbers. I can't imagine many of you were watching anything but Northwestern and Purdue and possibly Central Florida for a few series. All right, Kellen Mond. Kellen Mond was named the starter a few days ago. We knew that both quarterbacks would play in this game. Both quarterbacks have experience. Starkel won the job over Mond last year. They had the same battle this year in August camp. Starkel won last year. He got injured against UCLA in the opener. Mond took over, didn't play that well. So as soon as Starkel got healthy, he came back and took over the role and took it from there the rest of the season for Texas A&M. And Starkel had a huge bowl game in the aforementioned game against Wake Forest, the Belk Bowl. And they lost 55-52, but Starkel put 52 points on the Demon Deacons and threw for 500 yards and 4 touchdowns. But he lost the job to Mond. Jimbo Fisher, I think, telling us one of 2 things here, or maybe a combination of both. He likes Mond's running ability that Starkel does not have. Mond averaged almost 7 yards per carry in non-sack yardage last season, but he's not the passer Starkel was unless he really improved in the spring and summer. He threw for 51%. So the stats aren't going to tell us a whole lot against Northwestern State, but Mond went 17 of 25 for $184 and 2 touchdowns with no picks. Starkel came into the game as it was obviously out of hand, 5 for 8 for 79 yards and threw a touchdown. Travion Williams, a guy that had a big freshman campaign 2 years ago, Not as productive last year with the offensive line having all sorts of injury problems and shuffling up front. Ran for 240 yards. Travion Williams off to a great start here. It's only Northwestern State, but why not pile up the yardage and pile up the stats? Travion Williams, 20 for 240 for 3 touchdowns, including a 73-yard touchdown run. Texas A&M receiving. We talked in our preview about Jamon Osborne. He had 81 yards on 6 catches. And they spread the ball all over the field. There were like 12 guys that caught passes for Texas A&M. All right, A&M wins over Northwestern State 59-7. Game number 2 going to be slightly tougher. Northwestern State, Clemson. That's the deal for Jimbo Fisher, but they get the breather, they get the cakewalk, and they take it 59-7. All right, who else played tonight? We've got a bit of a barn burner in San Jose with the Spartans of San Jose State taking on UC Davis and losing 37-21 right now in the third quarter. Let's check out the numbers with UCF and UConn real quick. Central Florida will see tougher opponents in the future, but for right now, Mackenzie Milton, 24 for 32 for 346 and 5 touchdowns. Daniel Mack had a 70-yard touchdown run and also threw it twice for 10 yards. Milton carried for 50 yards. And they ran it 36 and threw it 34 times. Trey Nixon, we talked about him. He was the guy that caught the pass in the corner of the end zone where Milton threw a beautiful, beautiful rainbow throw as he was flushed from the pocket. That was, I believe, the night's second touchdown. Trey Nixon from Ole Miss, 5 catches for 101 yards. Adrian Killens, one of their big backs, one of their big playmakers, I should say, 2 catches for 44 yards. And UConn will probably struggle on offense, especially in the passing game. David Pindell had 27 of 41, 266, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. He ran for 157 yards. So this kid had quite a night. Statistically, it was a rough night. They only scored 17 points and only 10 when it mattered, but 266 passing, 157 rushing. Add that up for me. That's 423 in total yardage for David Pindell. And UConn falls to UCF 56-17. Ball State wins over Central Connecticut 42-6. I'm not going to go through all these games, I promise. Oklahoma State wins its opener against Missouri State 58-17. I'm guessing Drew Brown started that game for OK State at quarterback, the transfer from Hawaii. And if the box score will ever come up, I'm not going to wait for it. I think that's we've hit on everything important here. Let me get to the live stream here and see what you guys have going on. So tomorrow night, we've got Utah State at Michigan State, Western Kentucky at Wisconsin as a 36.5-point underdog. And the game of the night should be, of course, Stanford hosting San Diego State as the Aztecs won that game with Rashad Penny and company at home last year over the Cardinal. All right. Jamie, for some reason, thinks Arizona State's going to be good this year. Jamie, I might be wrong. Of course, I've been wrong before. I might be wrong again, but I've got ASU going 4-8, 2-7 in the Pac-12. Utah, gets their biggest games at home. And if you saw my Pac-12 preview with Tony Siracusa last night, It's a narrow window. It's a risky pick. It's out on a limb. USC has the much more favorable schedule since they don't have to face Washington. Arizona doesn't have to face Washington or Stanford. But Utah, I am predicting to win the Pac-12 South. And I still need to get my college football playoff predictions to you guys. So I predicted all the conferences, but I've got to get the playoff predictions, and I will do that tomorrow night sometime. I will not be able to do that tomorrow, which would make sense before anybody else from the Power Five plays, i.e., Michigan State, Wisconsin, and Stanford. But Michigan State and Wisconsin, I am telling you, are not going to lose tomorrow night. Colton's got Oregon, USC, Arizona, Washington, all at home are the best teams on their schedule. You guys are talking some Utah football. I love Utah this year. I just think they're solid at quarterback. Running back with Zach Moss coming back off a 1,000-yard season. Most of their playmakers on the outside, even though they're not great. That's the issue on offense is they don't separate from teams. They're too conservative. They're conservative for a reason. They don't have that kind of playmaker on the outside. They do get the one kid back from the LDS mission. I can't think of his name right now. But in 2015, Britain Covey, he had over 500 yards receiving in 2015. He comes back. The defense is always good. The defensive backfield at Utah, outside of Washington, is most likely the best in the Pac-12. They will be good, but the schedule is difficult. They have to beat USC on the road or have to beat USC at home. And then they've got a split of home and road with Stanford and Washington. And I believe that they need to win one of those two games. So, Jamie, you think if the Big 12 adds Tulane, that's going to usher them into Louisiana recruiting? I'm not necessarily sold on that. I hear you. Orsinis is telling us, is everyone okay with the fact that 100 FBS schools have 0% chance of winning the 2018 title at the week 1 point? No, I'm not okay with that. So we have to do one of two things, and a number of you know exactly what I'm going to say. We have to do one of two things. Either we include everyone, which means we go to an 18 playoff that includes 5 conference champions and 1 group of 5 representative, and it still doesn't give them much of a chance, much of a slice, considering there's close to 70 of them and they only would get 1 spot, but at least they would have some hope. We either need to do that, or we need to say the Power 5 is going to play a national championship in the group of 5. You can go do whatever you'd like. It is insane to me, and it's unfair, and it's ridiculous that this is the only level of football on the planet that doesn't have a championship. If you play NAIA, if you play Division 1, 2, or 3, whatever you play at the high school level, wherever you get to play for the championship for your area. The area here would be the nation. And the group of 5 does not have the opportunity to play for a national championship. So you are perfectly right and fair in saying it's not okay that all these teams are eliminated already. And you're right, Colton, you would go with Houston if you're the Big 12. You would go with Houston over Tulane. And Ricky was rooting for Tulane to pull off the upset, and that really would have helped the American Conference. Again, they love to call themselves the Power 6, the 6th member of the Power 6, and this would have been just another, wouldn't have been huge, wouldn't have sent shockwaves over the nation, over the college football world, but it would have been another indication that the American Conference is really good. As they have shown us a number of times, they're 3-0 in their 3 New Year's 6 appearances. 2017, Central Florida beat Auburn. 2016, which one was that? They had the Houston win over Florida State, but that was in 2015. 2016 was Anyway, the American Conference has done well. Central Florida beat Baylor in 2014. Central Florida beat Baylor that year. Baylor won the Big 12. And then the two most recent are the Houston win against Florida State in the Peach Bowl. And then last year, of course, the Peach Bowl win for Central Florida. All right, you guys are all over the place with some good stuff here, but I can't keep up because you guys are all over the map with the Big 10 and the Big 12. But I love it that you guys are able to talk up some college football. So my takes on the night is that we've got a new star in college football with Rondell Moore hitting the scene at Purdue. Again, he's the 4-star that we talked about in our preview video that went to the same high school as Jeff Brom, which really gave Brom an inroad to stealing him away from every other school in the nation. This kid could have gone to Ohio State or Alabama, but he chose Purdue. And in his first game with the Boilers, he set the all-time school record, not freshman record, all-time school record, regardless of player, in gaining all-purpose yardage in his first game. It still was not enough, as Lorenzo Neal made a stupid, idiotic play on the final meaningful play of the game, in which Northwestern had a 3rd and long, was just basically running the ball to set up a field goal try, leading by 31-27, to try to extend the lead to a full touchdown. Purdue would have gotten the ball back either on the missed or the made field goal and the kickoff, and would have been either playing for the touchdown to tie or to win the game with plenty of time left. And David Blau playing pretty well, and certainly with a weapon of Rondell Moore. But Lorenzo Neal, the only returning defensive lineman for Purdue, the senior that we talked about in our preview as being a leader on the Purdue defense, committed a personal foul and handed the win to Northwestern. So the Wildcats get a key Big Ten victory to start the season on the road against a decent team, trying to, again, get to the 10-win level as they were last year in going 10-3. That's point number one. Point number two tonight is the emergence in that same game of Jeremy Larkin in replacing Justin Jackson. He is a more explosive version of Justin Jackson. Now, will he be the horse? Will he be the bell cow that Justin Jackson was in taking all those hits and all that workload, carry after carry after carry? I don't know, but in his freshman season, he showed more explosiveness, and certainly did tonight, than Justin Jackson, gaining 6 yards a carry as a freshman, one of only 3 players in FBS to do so. And Jeremy Larkin had an exceptional game, at last count about 140 yards rushing. Clayton Thorson had to play part-time and give some of the snaps to TJ Green, son of Trent Green, and Northwestern was able to navigate that into a win on the road against Purdue. Clayton Thorson looked okay, didn't look great. The Northwestern offense looked really good in the first half. The positive in this game for Purdue might be that a retooled, a revamped, almost completely different and new defense from a personnel standpoint was shredded in the first half, stood up in the second half, and gave up nothing, no points to Northwestern. Their only foul, their only negative was committing the personal foul that gave the game to the Wildcats. Our other take tonight is that Zach Ennickstead survived his first game as a true walk-on, true freshman walk-on, playing for just the second time that a player in that position has started a single game, the single season starter, Baker Mayfield being the other. And Minnesota wins over New Mexico State 48-10. Rodney Smith ran for 160 yards. Antoine Winfield had a punt return for a touchdown. The Gophers' first in 5 years, and Minnesota wins as expected against a really bad team that's been outrushed 607-29 in its first 2 games. Minnesota will have to increase the effort, upgrade the quality performance against Fresno State next week. UCLA and Chip Kelly has named Wilton Speight the starter. He does not seem to be the quarterback to fit Chip Kelly's style of offense, but Chip Kelly has stated a number of times in the past few weeks that he will adjust the offense to the quarterback if needed. And it would appear to be a situation in which he will do exactly that with Wilton Speight as the quarterback. My picks tonight, Northwestern +2 came through, as did UCF -24. I've got my prediction video out. It includes Friday night's games as well. We will get you caught up with Saturday at a later date. The newsletter comes out on September 3rd. That's Monday. Please send me your email address to MarkRogersTV@gmail.com, and we will get you set up with the newsletter. All right, everyone. That's a college football instant analysis. Mark Rogers TV live for the first time in 2018. Maybe it was a bit rough, but we are glad that you joined us here for a breakdown of Northwestern-Purdue and a Wake Forest win in overtime at Tulane, and Minnesota's first win with a walk-on true freshman quarterback in play. All right, we will see you tomorrow night after the Utah State-Michigan State game, also Wisconsin-Western Kentucky, and we'll have to wait, especially if it's close, for Stanford and San Diego State, which will take us to about midnight Eastern time on a Friday night. All right, please like, comment, and subscribe. We will see you guys very soon right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. That's football. It's back, and we love it. And thanks so much for the support. We'll see you next time.